When you're dealing with airplanes, it's just not being able to diagnose and fix, but also document. They have these books that are this thick, and they'll open the book randomly, and they look down and say, okay, explain to me the symmetry of lift. Go up to the board.
This terrible thing that happened turned out to be a complete blessing.
And they just start going down that road. And if you have a certain weakness, they'll start digging down that weakness until you leave crying. And it's for 8 hours.
The first month of baseball, my elbow hurt so bad, and it would eventually click. You know, I get that dead arm.
Yes, I wound up going there to school. Basically, I wound up walking on to the baseball team, wound up walking on to the basketball team, and I majored in aviation administration.
So you just let that finger, the universe was controlling that finger, and it turned out to be a good pick. I love it.
I always tell people this. You play a lot of games in minor league baseball. We used to play 144 games in 150 days.
Wow. There's one thing that all champions have in common. They get shit done. So welcome to the Get Shit Done experience. Well, we are back at it again. You are in studio with us. This is the Get Shit Done experience, also known as the GSDX podcast. Hey, thanks so much for liking, following, and rating and reviewing on all of our platforms. We have crossed the 125,000 mark for views on YouTube. Thank you so much for that. Continue to grow. Hopefully you will share it with a friend. Tell somebody about the podcast. We keep bringing on amazing guests. I can't wait to roll out season 2 in 2025 with some of the amazing folks that we have. Today we have an unbelievable success story, an entrepreneur, somebody who has played athletics at the highest level and has just a fantastic story that you have to hear. We are proud to welcome Mr. Art Caines. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you, John.
So Art is the founder, CEO of Lexicon Networks. Please check them out. And also a new venture. He is the co-founder of Max-Grad, which is going to completely change the world. So we're rolling that bad boy out. We've got all kinds of things happening for you, Art. You got a new business launching. You got several websites launching, new technology launching. But before we get into all of that, let's start with you. Let's start with the story of Art. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and kind of how life started for you.
Sure, yep. So my life started in Dominican Republic. I was born in a place called San Pedro de Macorís, which is the bed of all, most of the Dominican baseball players that come to this country. So basically, I immigrated to the United States when I was 7 years old, and I grew up in the South Bronx. And, growing up in the Bronx I was growing up during the crack epidemic.
Oh, no.
So, and a lot of gangs, a lot of drugs, you name it. And basically I lived in a building that unfortunately did have a drug spot. Not only one, it had a couple.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so I grew up with that heavy influence of crime and people addicted and a lot of Section 8 housing and you name it, right? So from early on, I basically tried to keep to myself, stay out of trouble, focus on my education, tried to stay out of the crews and the gangs. And I had a very defining moment for me was that in my junior high school, I had to take the train every day to junior high. And on my way to the train, there was always this crews, that are hanging out and wanting you to be part of their crew and that kind of stuff. So basically, I wound up fighting a lot at my junior high school.
Those of you who are listening to this and you can't see Art on YouTube, Art is 6'6",
6'7",
6'7". Sorry, I didn't mean to insult you. 6'7". So I would imagine that anyone who decided that they wanted to fight you was doing it begrudgingly.
Well, not exactly. So I had a late growth spurt.
Okay.
So I was small. I was so when I went to high school, I have my medical records. I was 5'2" and weighed 90 pounds.
Holy cow. That was me. But you grew, I didn't.
Yeah, so I was tiny.
Yeah.
But long story short is in a matter of 3 months, I had about 15 fights at our junior high school.
Jeez.
And the reason I had these fights is because the way they got you to join their crew is they want to make sure that you could fight. So they would gang up on you and fight you. And if you could defend yourself, then they wanted you in their crew. Well, I didn't want to be in their crew.
Yeah.
They kept fighting me, wanted me to join their crew. So basically, I wound up getting suspended at least 15 times or more.
Oh, gosh.
So the principal called my dad and says, look, your son is the common denominator here. He's been suspended all these times. I have kids that get suspended here and there. Think about it. He hasn't been in school.
Jeez.
Yeah. So basically, he told me he can't come to the school next year.
So what do you do?
So my dad's like, look, I have 11 kids. I have 7 sisters and I have 3 brothers. So my dad's like, where am I going to put them? This is the only school you can go to. He goes, well, I don't care. Can't come here. So basically, there was this person there, Mr. Hirschbaum. I remember his name. So basically, he was a history teacher, and my dad was a superintendent of the building where we lived, and he sold my dad cleaning chemicals. So he called this person that he knew, and he says, hey, you know what? I'm having this issue with my son. Can you speak to the principal? So this person went and spoke to the principal, and the principal was like, hell no, he's a troublemaker.
Yeah.
We're not going to have him here. So basically, he came back to my dad and says, hey, the principal's not having them. You need to send them somewhere else. Now, this junior high school went from the 7th to the 9th grade.
Okay.
And our local high school went from the 10th through the 12th, right? So I wouldn't be able to go to that junior high school for the 9th grade. But there were many other high schools that started in the 9th grade. So Mr. Hirschbaum tells my dad, hey, there's some entrance examinations at these 2 high schools. I had your kid in my class. He's pretty smart. You should take the entrance examinations of Bronx High School of Science, Aviation High School. Those are 2 vocational schools that are, the top 2 in the state. Basically, he should see if he can get in there. So he wound up getting me the information for those schools. I found out when the entrance examinations were being held, and I went ahead and took the examinations. I wound up getting into Aviation High School.
There's always savings, but it's about way more than savings alone. Total Technology Solutions Group redefines managed print services. Excellence is the minimum standard. TTSG is a true managed print service provider, deeply understanding your technology and business goals. Your business is unique. Our solutions are tailored to your current and future business goals. Our customer-first approach empowers and delights. TTSG can ensure your technology environment will scale as your business does. So as you navigate business and constant change, partner with TTSG for premium advisement and seamless implementation of your technology goals. We set the bar high. Your people deserve it. Peace of mind. Powerful innovation. TTSG.com. So this terrible thing that happened turned out to be a complete blessing. Isn't that amazing? That's amazing. Present time when it was happening, you're petrified, your dad's mad.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what is going to happen with this kid? And it's the beginning.
It's the beginning
of you getting hooked.
Or getting out of trouble, really.
Yeah.
Because the way he saw it was, the principal was telling him, hey, the reason he's home is because he's into all these fights.
Yeah.
Right? And
that you didn't start. You're just defending yourself.
Yeah, I'm just defending myself. So I wound up going to Aviation High School. Now, for those that are not familiar with New York City, I live in the Bronx. Aviation High School is in Queens. It's another borough.
Holy cow. So what's the commute?
So the commute was an hour and 30 minutes on the express. Yeah. If I could
going 3 miles an hour.
Yep. So basically, it took an hour and 45 minutes, hour and 30 minutes to get there. If I took the local, it was an hour and 45 minutes. If I took the express, it was an hour and a half. But I had no choice.
Yeah. I mean, you do what you got to do.
Yeah. So the other thing was that Aviation High School, it wasn't your traditional high school. So if you went there, it was a vocational high school. So you could go into college as a junior, right? So you could do 2 years of college while you were in the high school. You could become a pilot. That's what it's called, Aviation High School. So some students elected to become pilots. Others decided to become airplane mechanics. So you could get one FAA certified license after the first 4 years there. And also you could become a machinist.
Yeah, solid careers.
Yeah, so all solid careers. So I wound up going to Aviation High School. My first experience was I had to leave home at 4:45 in the morning because freshmen.
Why even go to sleep?
Well, that was the thing. It was like it was a small school, so they had 7 shifts, and freshmen came in early.
Oh my gosh! So it was like 4:45. So school started what 6?
Yeah, 6:45 a.m.
And then, so 6 to what time?
Yeah, so you went 6 to like 1:40 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so you were out and,
So
a
little freedom after that.
Yeah, well, seniors, their first class would be lunch.
Jeez.
So they didn't have to get up early.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically I wound up going there. I elected to become an airplane mechanic, an airframe mechanic, and I went through the system. While I was there, I also played baseball, I ran track, and I played basketball, but I played in a church league.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was always into athletics. And basically I wound up graduating in the top 10% of the class and I managed to get my FAA certified airframe license.
That's amazing.
Yep. And then they had this program where if you were in the top 10%, you could come back and get a second license within a 6-month period. So I elected to do that, and I wound up getting a second license, and I managed to also pass the FAA examinations for that. And for those of you that don't know, to get a license and get FAA certified, it's really difficult. So there's 3 examinations. There's a written test that you have to pass. Then they have a practical, and then they have the oral. And the oral is the last test.
That's to make sure that you didn't cheat on the other ones.
Yep.
Can you explain it?
Well, think about it this way. So the written test is about 400 questions on different subjects for that particular license that you're trying to get. So basically, after you take that and you get the passing grade, then you can apply to do the what's called the practical. So in the practical, what they do is that they have airplanes. You go to a setting, and they ask you to fix something on an airplane. Now, when you're dealing with airplanes, it's just not being able to diagnose and fix, but also document. So you have to document everything you do, and you have to do it in a technical language, right?
Yeah.
And all of that.
They got to trace everything back.
Right, exactly. You have to say if you found something else, you have to report it and those kind of things. So sometimes they would ask you to, okay, you need to diagnose this, right? But they would screw something else up. So you couldn't just focus on what you were set to fix. You also had to say, hey, if you see something, you have to say something.
Got it.
Kind of scenario. So I wound up passing the practical. And then the hardest part where everybody fails is the oral. And the reason that the oral is terrifying is because you have 3 FAA
standing there staring at you.
Yeah, testing.
And they know the answer before you're given it.
Not only that, they have these books that are this thick, and they'll open the book randomly, and they look down and say, okay, explain to me the symmetry of lift. Go up to the board.
Whoa.
And they'll say, what's decollage? Explain it to me. And they just start going down that road. And if you have a certain weakness, they'll start digging down that weakness until you leave crying.
Wow.
And it's for 8 hours.
8 hours of oral testing.
That's
Good
right.
Lord.
That's right. Yeah. So you're there and you're sweating and you're...
I would have been like, do you have a sales department I could join?
Yeah, but I managed to go through that not just once, but twice.
Okay.
Right. And I wound up getting both of my licenses, and I wound up interviewing with American Airlines, United. And this is so that you understand how I grew up. So my mom worked 2 jobs. My dad worked 2 jobs. He was a superintendent. But
11 kids. That makes sense.
Yep. And basically what wound up happening was I was getting offer letters. My mom was throwing them in the trash.
Offer letters for baseball, yeah?
No, talking from the airlines.
Oh my gosh.
To work as a mechanic. So one of my sisters says, I think I saw a letter from United in the trash. So I went through the trash, I pulled it out, and they had made me a job offer and I had to relocate to San Francisco.
Okay.
So I confronted my mom. I said, hey, why are you putting my letters in the trash? She goes, what do you know about airplane mechanics?
Oh my gosh. She had no idea that you were doing this.
All she knew was that I got good grades.
Yeah. You weren't in fights anymore.
Yeah. That's all she knew. But she had never been to my high school. She had never been to any of my sporting events.
Busy working.
Yeah. Trying to maintain, 11
feed
kids.
you.
Yeah, that's right. Same thing with my dad. They had never been to my high school, nothing, right? So they were surprised, like, what is this that you're an airplane mechanic? I said, Dad, that's why I come here late, and this is why I do all this studying. And my mom's like, you're too young, you're 18, you're going to be taking people's lives into your own hands. So I was always very respectful of my parents. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? I have 2 job offers. They said, hey, you know what? Why don't you just go to college? And I was like, well, I wasn't planning on it. And they were like, yeah, just, apply for college, go back to the guidance counselor there and tell them to help you find a school.
Okay.
So basically, I went back over there, and they had say, "Hey, you got more than 2 job offers." They told me everybody you interviewed with, basically wanted to hire you. They were calling here wanting to know why you weren't responding.
Yeah.
If they had the right address or whatever the case may be. So I went there, and they said, "You know what? With 2 licenses, you should consider military school."
Okay.
And so I was like, "Well, how do I go about that?" So they said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of everything. We'll fill out all the information for you. You just go ahead and take this ACT or like an entrance examination." So I went through that process, and then I got accepted. I can't remember so I got accepted to Annapolis.
Okay, that would be Navy, yeah?
Yeah, the Navy.
Yeah.
And basically, when I told my mom, she goes, "That's not a school. That's like the military.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you can die."
Well, you could have died in your neighborhood too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So she goes, "Why don't you pick a local school?" I guess she didn't want me to leave.
Yeah. She might have liked you.
Yeah. So I wound up doing something which I thought was foolish at the time, but I just went to the library and I opened up these books that have all of your universities. And I basically went like this. I kid you not.
Eyes closed.
I opened all 3 books up, and with my eyes closed, I just looked down and saw the name of the university, and I wrote it down. And I did that 3 times, and I sent my information to them.
Okay.
And the first one that responded to me was Northern Kentucky University.
Nice. Okay.
So that's how I wound up going to Northern Kentucky University.
Hilltoppers?
No, they're the Norse.
The what?
Norse.
Norse. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but it's red, right? Red's the
they're
primary color?
No, they're white and gold. So they're
what am I
in the
confusing it with?
So they're in the Horizon League. So they're right across from Cincinnati. They're in
Got it.
Highland
Okay, just over the border.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wound up going there to school, and basically I wound up walking on to the baseball team, wound up walking on to the basketball team, and I majored in aviation administration.
Wow, so you just let that finger, the universe was controlling that finger, and it turned out to be a good pick. I love it.
Yeah.
So you walk onto both sports. What is that like? I mean, you weren't scouted, right? Nobody's been watching you in high school and so on. There's no coach to call and said, "Hey, this guy's the guy. You got to have him on the team." So you're starting completely fresh.
I was starting completely from scratch. But the thing is, it's like I tell people, a lot of times you have to make a way where there is no way.
Yeah.
And with me, not to brag or anything, but I was an all-around athlete. So for those of you that are in track and field out there, so as a sophomore in high school, I was running 48 quarters.
Okay, explain that.
So if you think about it, in the Olympics, if you're running 45 quarter, 44 quarter, it's like you're lights out.
Mm-hmm.
As a sophomore in high school, I'm running 48. I'm sub 50.
Okay. Jeez.
And mind you, I'm a scrawny kid with no strength.
So we haven't grown yet.
I haven't grown, and also not really good nutrition per se.
Yeah.
Right. So, or no, how would I say?
You're not in the gym either.
Not in the gym.
This is you're just rolling out of bed, working on planes, and then go run.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was running 48 quarters, and I didn't realize how fast that was until I went to college.
Mm-hmm.
I saw people that were on full scholarship that were not running the times I was running as a sophomore in high school.
Wow.
And I stopped running track in high school because of my oldest brother. He was a track runner, and he was really, really good in cross country. He was running sub 15s in cross country. He was running 1350s up and down hills for the 5K. Wow. So I naturally followed his inclination of being in track. And he told me, he says, "Art, you need to get out of track." And it's like,
you're taking my limelight, man.
And he was like, "Why?" I was like, "Why?" He says, "I think I'm doing good." He goes, "Yeah, you're doing great." He goes, "But there's no money in track, and we're poor."
You're like, "Then why are you doing it?" He's like, "Well, because I can't play basketball or baseball like you can."
So basically, So he says, "I'm seriously, you need to drop it and go into baseball or basketball. You need to pick up a skill sport where you can make some money because we're lived in a basement, So basically, so it was one of those things where I stopped running track and I focused on baseball and developed my baseball and basketball skills per se. And, that sort of took me through college. It paid for my college. I wound up getting a basketball scholarship and after walking on.
Okay.
And I was extremely fast. I was a really good defensive player. And I was able to also play baseball. And it turned out that I was a much better baseball player than I was a basketball player.
Okay.
Right. So I wound up getting an offer from the Detroit Tigers after being there a couple of years at Northern Kentucky University.
Amazing. And in basketball, what position were you playing?
So I was playing forward.
Forward?
Yeah.
Small forward?
Small forward.
So shooting forward, essentially?
Yeah. So we ran a 3-2.
Okay.
So we ran 3 guards, 2 forward. So we were a track team, basically.
Yeah.
That's
up and down the court. Yeah, you fit in well.
So well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we ran people to death, and we gave a lot of team scares. We were playing Xavier, Dayton, and then they took us off the schedule. Like, no,
yeah, we were trying to line up with teams we could beat to get that free win. You guys are beating us. This is not good.
This is not good. Yeah, but we had a pretty amazing coach, and he was all about pressure and running.
Okay.
Yeah,
I love it. So with that speed, then. How does that translate to baseball? They put you in the outfield immediately?
Yes, I was an outfielder. I played all 3 outfield positions. I had a really strong arm. I could run the bases. Some of the scouts were amazed. They couldn't believe some of the times I was running. I batted from the right-hand side. If I hit a 2-hopper to third base, I would beat it out.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were like, hey, you ran a 3.8 home to first.
3.8 home to first?
One time they timed me at 12.88 seconds inside the park home run.
Holy cow. I mean, that is just moving.
Yeah, so I was blazing. They were always amazed at
And now at that point, you've grown into your body now.
Yeah,
now
so I'm about 6'2".
Okay.
Yeah, as a freshman in college, I was around 6'2", and weighed probably 160 pounds.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Just flying. So did you eventually, with the strong arm and the speed, was it right field? Was that where you're at?
Yes, I eventually wound up playing right field.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was a pretty good all-around athlete. So in professional baseball, after I left college, when I went with the Tigers, I played all 3 outfield positions. I played third base. I played first base. I even caught one time.
Third base? What a waste of athleticism for you. That's the pudgy guys did third base.
Well, the thing is that a lot of times, I always tell people this, you play a lot of games in minor league baseball. We used to play 144 games in 150 days.
Wow. Yeah. And not great conditions either, too,
yeah,
right? I mean,
and you're traveling on buses. So people get hurt.
Yeah.
You need to be able to fill your roster with people that can actually, hey, you know what, we need for you to fill in here because this person's down.
And the depth chart in the minors is different too, because they're not going to there's a big gap between the starter and the next guy because the good players are starting at different levels, right?
Yep. Yeah. So you have a limited roster. And at the same time, if people get hurt or whatever the case may be, you have to fill in people at different positions. But, with me, I was an athlete that I was always in shape. And like I used to do infield, and I would do infield from left. I would do the infield from center. I would do the infield from right.
Yeah.
And I used to come in and do infield from third base.
I love it.
And people was like, does your arm hurt?
It's a noodle.
Yeah. They're like, because people's arms would be hanging. Right?
Oh, yeah. I can remember, man. The first month of baseball, my elbow hurt so bad, and it would eventually click. I get that dead arm, and then eventually click. But when we'd be doing the drills, like you had to throw from the warning track to second, then you had to throw from the warning track to third, and then the one to home. I mean, to second, I was fine. The one to third, it was starting to get bad. But man, I was barely getting it to the pitcher's mound on the one from center after a while. The arm was just dangling.
Yeah, so I used to do that from left, from center, from right. Then I used to come in the third and do it
and then
third.
do it.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So I know this is shocking everyone that you were a talented baseball player being from the Dominican Republic lineage. Because no amazing baseball players come from the Dominican, right?
Tell me about it.
It's like the mecca for baseball talent. So you land with the Detroit Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about what that path looks like for you.
Well, it's really interesting. So when I lived in the Dominican Republic, my neighbor that was backyard to us was Julio Franco's mom was my godmother.
No kidding.
Yeah, so Julio Franco's like a name from the past.
Oh, okay. I still have his rookie card. It was the best batting stance ever, man.
Yeah.
Had the hands up high.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
he played till he was like 52.
Yeah, that's incredible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a tremendous athlete, and I always looked up when I was in high school. He was just coming into his prime. He was just got to the big leagues, actually, and he invited us to come and see his first game.
Okay.
So his first game actually was with, it was in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And it was with the Cincinnati Reds.
He was on the Reds?
No, he was on the Phillies.
He was on the Phillies.
I believe so, yeah.
The majority of his career was with the Rangers, right?
With the Rangers, yeah. Rangers and Cleveland.
Cleveland
Indians, yeah. And it was a real interesting story. So we're in the hotel room, and there comes a knock. And Franco says, hey, open the door, see who it is. And it was Pete Rose.
Get out of town. Was he coming to place a bet with you?
No. It was Pete Rose.
God rest his soul.
And he was like, hey, he gave Franco a bag, and he goes, yeah. He says, take 2 with coffee. And I was like, what's that all about? And Franco's like, I don't know. He wouldn't tell me.
Yeah.
Right. But it was when he came up to the big leagues, it was already the end of the season. And he had been up through like 2, I think he started in AA, then he went to AAA, and then he finally made it to the big leagues. And then he had played baseball in Dominican Republic, that winter baseball.
Okay.
So by that point, he had played over 200 games.
Jeez. That's a lot. I mean, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
That's even if you win the World Series and every playoff game goes to, or a series goes to game 7, you don't play that many games.
Yep. So basically, I kept asking, what did he bring you? I was like, it's Pete Rose. I'm sort of shocked.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, my body's hurting and I need some
some painkillers.
Yeah. So he needed something to help with the aches and pains, and that's what Pete Rose brought him. Kind of thing.
That sounds about right.
Very nice of Charlie Hustle.
Yeah, exactly. Now we know.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So he wound up playing, and the rest is history, right? So he wound up getting traded that winter. He wound up getting traded to Cleveland, and then he wound up, starting his career with Cleveland, and he wound up going around the league. But, yeah, tremendous player, great shortstop, great hitter.
Yeah, great hitter. If you are wanting a point of reference, all you have to do is Google Julio Franco, and you'll see the coolest batting stance of all time. I mean, if you're a Gen X kid like I am, you probably in the backyard were emulating Julio Franco's batting stance playing wiffle ball. It was it was the stance, man. The hands are so high. Then Craig Counsell, now coach of the Cubs, kind of took on a similar style.
Yeah.
That was
he was more straight up and down.
Yeah, straight up, yeah.
But cool. The most interesting thing, a little pointer, and then we'll get off the topic there, but in one of the All-Star games, I think it was, he was facing a heater, really fastball pitcher called Rob Dibble.
Oh, yeah.
And he was throwing 101, 102, 103, and Julio's got this stance like he has to unwrap to swing the bat.
You don't have time.
Yeah, so he threw a high fastball at 103, and Franco hit it back like at 120.
Yeah, jeez.
Line drive to center field.
Well, Julio used like a 39-ounce bat too, or something.
Yeah, really heavy bat.
Real heavy bat, huge barrel. I mean, that's a strong dude. So how does the career go with professional baseball?
Yeah, so I played 3 years with the Tigers. I moved up every year, but I didn't see myself making it. I didn't have a good understanding of what it took to make it to the big leagues.
Okay.
I thought that I would go there, and after 3 years, I would be in the big leagues.
Here I am. Yeah.
And the reality of the matter is that there's 8 different levels that you need to go through. Things have to go your way. You have to stay, you have to keep away from injuries. Also, you have situations where I wasn't a draft pick. I was just signed as a free agent. So sometimes when these draft picks come in, they take priority.
Yeah, because the GM wants to save face.
So I'll give you an example. So when I was playing in Fayetteville, North Carolina, it's called the Fayetteville Tigers. So basically, Casey McKeon was Jack McKeon's son. So he had gotten drafted.
Jack McKeon he was coach of the Marlins in 2003 that beat the Cubs the Bartman year.
That's right. And he was also a longtime manager of San Diego Padres. So his son got signed, and his son was placed on our team. So when his son came to our team, I got sat on the bench. So Casey sees me doing infield from left field, from center field, from right field, coming in the third and then he sees how fast I am. And after a week of that, he goes over to the coach and says, why are you playing me?
Yeah.
He goes, you're Jack McKeon's son. What do you mean why we're playing you? He goes, look, I'm only here for a cup of coffee. I just want to be a scout. That's it. You see that guy right there?
He needs to be playing.
He needs to be playing because those are the kind of guys that I want to bring into the league.
Yeah, that's cool of him to do.
Yeah.
Did you hear him say that?
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's really nice of him to do that.
Yeah, but that was KC. KC was that way. He was straight up front. And, he was going to tell people what he thought.
What a cool dude. That's really nice to hear.
So the coach
he could have been backstabbing you left and right, and he's like, no, that guy needs to be playing. Yeah. He needs to take my spot so I can get on with my career as a scout.
Yep. Yeah, so that was the case, right? You go through the politics of baseball, right? So I wound up playing for 3.5 years, and I decided, you know what, I need to go back to college. I didn't see myself continuing on. And even after I decided to stop out, I had about 8 teams offer me contracts after I left.
That's nice. So what was the thing, like nowhere near the level that you played, but I was a good ball player until I saw an 85-mile-an-hour slider. And then it was like, I don't belong here. What was the thing for you? And I mean, literally, I called my dad. I'm like, there's no shot. This is different. I was struggling to hit an 85-mile-an-hour fastball. Now I'm seeing it bend. No, this is not for me. So what was the thing for you?
The thing for me was consistency. So if you look at my stats, they weren't really horrible. When I played in Bristol, I hit 248 or 250, something like that. And the whole thing was being able to be consistent. And I was not consistent when I was hitting.
Hitting was
so I'll explain. So I could go 16 for 30, right? A little bit over 500.
Yeah.
And then in the next 30 at bats, I'd be 2 for 30.
Yeah, that's tough.
All right. And it wasn't that I was striking out. I was popping up. I was grounding the ball out. If I get jammed, they go right directly
You're
to
a
the second
tall
baseman.
player too, man. They probably jammed you left and right.
They would try to jam me.
Yeah. You better get it inside far enough.
Yeah. But anyway, so that was the whole thing, right? It was consistency. I didn't see myself. I wasn't consistent, and that really frustrated me because I was known as the machine. If you ask anybody, hey, what's the nickname? I had 2 nicknames. Some guys called me Sugar for Sugar Canes.
Okay.
Another guy says, no, leave that sugar thing to the side. He's La Máquina.
La Máquina.
The machine.
I like it.
Yeah. And the reason people call me the machine is because I put in an inordinate amount of work. I used to get up early in the morning at 5:30 and I would go work out.
Everything matches up. I mean, the high school, you had to get up super early. So now getting up early to go do the work is no big deal to you. That's cool.
So basically, I would get up early. I would go hit the weight room. I would then make it to our training sessions that we had. If we had to do anything at the park early, I would be there. So basically, I put in an inordinate amount of time, right, into honing my craft, getting good at it, understanding situations, the whole works. Baseball is one of those sports where you have to be multi-dimensional, right?
And it's a thinker's game,
and it's a thinker's game, right? So basically you have to be well-rounded all around, and you have to be, in order to perform at the highest levels. So basically I wound up putting in a lot of time. When I say I put in a lot of time, I would have to bring people in here to corroborate it, but I used to do 500 swings every night.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
Right? I used to do ungodly things, just because I wanted to get good.
Yeah. I mean, just think about that. Like, I'm a golfer, right? So I'll go to the driver range, hit 200 balls. I'm spent. And I'm hitting 150 more than the people next to me. Right? You want to be good at something, you got to put in the time. You want to get shit done, you got to put in the time, the effort. 500 swings a night.
Every night.
That's a lot.
I did 500 swings every night.
Yeah.
And people used to wonder, how do you get around on inside pitches? Pitchers could not throw me inside. And it was just an instinctual thing. I was like, it comes from memory. So the way that I would do it, I'm a tall person, right? So I have long hands. I have long arms. So I would take the bat and I would put it from my waist to the wall. And then
so you get real inside.
Yeah, so I practiced, getting comfortable swinging with my hands really close to my body.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Right?
And then you had to get that knob through first, right?
Well, it depends on...
So you didn't cast, is what I'm saying. If you cast a swing, they're going to jam you. You're going to hit it off.
Jam you, right? Yeah. So it depends on the type of hitter that you are.
Yeah.
So you have front foot hitters, right? You have hitters that just throw their hands at the ball, and then you have other hitters that use their hips to bring the bat around.
Okay.
Right? So it depends on the type of hitter that you are as to how your delivery for your swing comes about.
Got it.
So for a guy who swings from the hips, right? He tends to cast a lot.
Mhm.
So if you look at the Darryl Strawberries, you look at these guys that really use their hips to swing.
They were long with their hands.
They tend to get long.
Okay.
A guy who perfected this was of how to stay tight was Barry Bonds. So if you look at Barry Bonds, you'll see if you look at his feet, you'll notice the thing you need to notice with Barry Bonds is his back hip. So he locks in his back hip and there's no move to it. And then what he does is he brings in his front heel to put pressure on the back hip.
Got it.
And he uses that to explode.
Launch. It's really interesting now that I try and think of seeing his swing. He did not have a whole lot of movement below the waist.
Yeah.
It was real compact.
Really compact, yeah. So I tried to learn to do those things as a tall person.
Yeah.
How to try to stay compact so that I could be more consistent. Right. But basically the reason I got a baseball was because I was not consistent. Even though I was putting in all this time, it was not showing the results that I wanted.
Okay.
And so I basically, everybody kept telling me it's too early.
And how old are you now at this point?
So I was in 23 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Living your best life.
24, yeah. Yeah, so, and that's something else that I kept thinking, I wanted to be in the big leagues, by the time I was 24, 25, and I'm in long A.
Yeah.
So I'm gauging all these things, and I'm like, you know what, it's time for me to give it up.
And you got to want it bad enough, too. I mean, that's the thing. It sounds like you had other things that were drawing you, that you had these other skill sets, things that you had learned, and they're drawing you away. And even though you're putting all of this work in, the passion started to kind of...
Well, the passion was always there. And it was just that sometimes I'm too analytical.
Got it.
Yeah. So I'm always thinking of the scenario and where am I at, right? So I think that took over.
Okay.
And at that point, I'm like, you know what? If I'm not going to make it within the predetermined time frame that I want to make it in, I have to consider other options.
Any regrets?
Not at all. I think that I do have a little bit of regret that I didn't give it more time because, like I said, we have folks that I played with that, did make it to the big leagues. Guys like, I was really good friends with David Justice.
Okay.
So, he was a little bit ahead of me. We had Jose Lima. We used to room together.
Great
all the
pitcher.
time. Yeah. And we had Jose Lima as another guy that played for the Tigers. So Danny Bautista. So a lot of the folks that Ryan Klesko.
You played with Klesko. I love it.
Yep. So
a lot of Braves.
Yeah. So basically, So basically, a lot of the guys that I play with, that some of them even looked up to me because of my skill sets.
Yeah.
They wound up making it.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So that's life, right?
That is. So you transition now. You say, okay, enough of this. I'm going into the private sector. Where do you go with this expertise that you have as a mechanic?
Well, what I did is that the guy who was my agent, he says, hey, I'm really good friends with Johnny Majors. Okay. And with your speed and your height and your athleticism, so you'd be a great wide receiver or tight end.
Okay.
So he goes, why don't you apply to University of Tennessee in Knoxville? So I applied to University of Florida.
And you still had time to play collegiate.
Yeah, I did. And I'll explain that. So basically, I wound up going to UT, University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I wound up, he called Johnny Majors. Johnny Majors said, hey, yeah, have him come out. So I came out and I went and did a workout with the team. And basically, I remember, so there were a couple of guys there. One of the guys' name was Pickens.
Yeah, Carl Pickens.
Carl Pickens.
Played for Cincinnati.
Yeah, and then there was another guy, he was a safety for the Chiefs, Dale Carter.
Oh, yeah. Number 34.
Yeah.
Dale Carter could hit, man.
Yeah, so both of those guys were on that team. And then on that team was also Heath Schuler.
Yeah.
And also another football player.
Heath Schuler went on to be a government official. I think he ran for Senate, I want to say.
Yeah, and then
terrible quarterback, by the way.
And then there was also another guy. His name was Jeremy Colquitt, another NFLer. And then you had another guy, Todd Helton was also.
Yeah, Helton. Yeah. Oh, I mean, that Todd Helton played for Tennessee on the football team too.
He was a quarterback,
Hall of Fame first baseman for the Colorado Rockies, but he was a quarterback too. That's right.
Yeah. So so we had some coaches. Okay, let's have you run the 40. And so one coach times his head, something's not right. So he calls the other coach over and say, hey, why don't you come over here? Let's clock
the clock's messed up here.
Yeah. So they had me run again. He goes, we're both off. I don't know what's going on.
What was the 40 at? 4.3?
So then they had Carl Pickens come and say, hey, why don't you come run with him?
Yeah.
And when they saw I left him in the dust, he was like, oh shit, this is right. So I was running 4.3.
Jeez.
4.28, 4.3 flat.
Get out of town.
And I was weighing 265.
You weighed 265?
Yeah, because the Detroit Tigers at the time that I got there,
they were beefing you up.
Bo Schembechler had taken over as the head of minor league player development, and he brought with himself kinesiologists and nutritionists. So they all developed like this program for you. And like I said, they called me the machine. So I used to follow that program to the T.
Now, this is a kid who didn't eat really well, and now all of a sudden, you're being
so I went
fed.
I went from 168 to 260.
And this has got to be muscle that you've added.
All at a 5% body fat.
Yeah,
and I had lost no speed.
Good Lord. They should have put you at DN, man.
So when the guys saw me running, they're like, oh shit, like this is for real. So then they had Johnny Majors come and talk to me and say, what's your major, son? And I was like, hey, my major is aerospace engineering. And they're like, what?
Who is this guy? Yeah.
So they're like, why are you majoring?
You're not supposed to have all the gifts, Art. Come on, man.
So they said, why are you majoring in aerospace engineering? I was like, well, I'm an airplane mechanic. He's like, you're what? I was like, yeah. So they said, what school did you go to get? I said, I got an airplane mechanic. I got my mechanics license in high school. He said, like, FA certified? I said, yes. I whipped out my license. I was like, yeah. I'm
Two
FA.
of them?
Yeah. Certified. They're like, look, son, he says, you can't major in aerospace engineering. He says, we want you on the team, but you have to change your major. Because we don't have any
Because they didn't have that. Got it. No tutors for that.
And they say, you get 2 hours to do your homework.
Jeez.
And so they said, hey, stay in the dorms. So I stayed in the sporting dorms. They said, get a feel for it and see if there's something that you want to do. So basically, I stayed in the sporting dorms that summer. And I was taking a summer class. And basically, I wound up realizing that, hey, you know what? From lights on at 5 a.m., you have breakfast, you hit the weight room, right? And then you're supposed to take all your classes from 8 a.m. to midday. You come back, you have lunch, and then you go out on the field. And you're out on the field from about 2 to 6. And then you have dinner. And then you have from 7 to 9, you have to do all of your homework. And then there's film from 9 to 10. And then it's lights out and you're back up.
Man, you grew up fast. You grew up fast. Holy cow.
Yeah, so that was the regimen. And I was like, it's just one engineering class. It'll take you 2 hours to do your homework.
Yeah.
So I decided, you know what? I had enough of sports. I'm going to focus on my career.
Okay.
And that's how I wound up, just sticking with the engineering.
Okay. So you graduate, right? And what's the first job out of college?
So really interesting. So before I graduated, I wound up working with a professor named Raul Aramili, and he had a bunch of research grants. So I wound up doing research on thermocouples while I was doing my undergraduate.
What's a thermocouple?
A thermocouple is two dissimilar metals that you use to measure temperature.
Okay.
So if you look at all your thermostats and all of that, they have thermocouples within them. And that's how they're able to determine what the room temperature is or refrigeration devices.
Okay.
Yeah, so he had Fisher Rosemont, which is right down the road right here.
Yeah.
So they're a big provider of thermocouples. So we wound up doing research for them just on different metals, different configurations and that kind of stuff. So I wound up presenting that research at a conference, and I was approached by Lockheed Martin at the time. Lockheed and said, hey, you know what? Are you interning anywhere? And I was like, no, I'm not. The guy says, send me your resume because I'm delighted with the research that you've done. And we deal a lot with thermocouples and different things that we do. So basically, to give me your phone number. So I gave him my phone number, and he goes, please send me your resume. I'd like to get you into our program. So I didn't even have a resume.
Yeah.
So
you're like 4.3 40 and hit curveball, 2 licenses.
Yeah. So basically, they called me at home and said, hey, we haven't received your resume. When are you going to send it? And at the time, I think the email that we had was a Eudora.
Oh my Lord. Yeah.
Eudora was the email.
You were big on MySpace too, right?
Yes, I wound up, breaking down and creating a resume and sending it to them. They interviewed me, and I wound up interning with Lockheed at one of the national labs.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was at Oak Ridge National Lab there in Tennessee, and I wound up doing almost 2.5 years of interning with them and got to work on a lot of interesting projects. I worked on Star Wars, worked on Amphib, which is a silent submarine project. I did.
So Star Wars, is that the 80s?
Early 90s.
Early
yeah.
90s, okay.
Yeah, early 90s.
That was like one of the last things that Reagan kind of talked about in the late part of his term.
Yes. I did destructive testing of beryllium. Basically, so beryllium is a metal that's used a lot in outer space because it could withstand, a lot of radiation.
Okay.
This kind of thing. So I was doing that kind of testing. Also did work with some polishing of metals, and beryllium in particular. So a lot of times with optics, they were trying to polish. They were polishing metals down to the electron level. I mean, they had an electron gun, and they would do passes across the surface just to, get the right luminosity. But
wow.
Yeah, so basically a lot of those optics wound up in satellites. Some of it wound up in Black Hawk helicopters and those kind of things.
Okay.
Yep. And on the silent submarine project, there was more of a microphone arrays that were used to where you would have submarines pass through those arrays, and you would take all the digital signatures, and then there was code to analyze that, and they could recreate you talking inside the submarine.
So were you needing like DOD clearance?
Yeah, I had clearance.
This is crazy.
Yeah, so basically I wound up working on those different projects. I also worked on a project with a famous scientist named Carl Reshmanek. So we worked on developing a true mass flow meter. So all mass flow meters are volumetric mass. They have like a Wheatstone bridge. And in this case, we were developing a mass flow meter that actually measured actual mass. And we used that to calibrate all of the mass flow meters that use the Wheatstone bridge.
How would that be used in a practical sense?
Yeah. So if you think about, we did this for the semiconductor industry.
Okay.
Semtech. So basically what winds up happening as you go down in the number of transistors that you put inside of a chip, that's all done with doping. And that means that you need to deliver gases at very minute levels in order to create that PNP junction or that transistor, right? So basically, in order to do that, you have to have a flow meter that's measuring the amount of gases being dispensed on a particular silicone wafer. So that's how this is used.
All right, listeners, there's going to be a quiz after this. So if you're keeping up with this, then you are on the level. I love it. So the internship comes to a wrap. Where do we go?
Yeah,
Does Lockheed say, hey, come on, stay with us now?
Yeah, so the funny thing was they're like, hey, we noticed that you're majoring in aerospace engineering. We don't hire aerospace engineers. You need to change your major.
Oh my gosh.
We want to hire you. But
a whole lot of people telling you what you got to do.
Yeah, so basically they said, why don't you major like in mechanical, electromechanical, because they're more well-rounded. With aerospace, it's a lot of software.
Okay.
A lot of software, fluid dynamics, and those kind of things, right? With mechanical engineering, you cover every other field. So you do engineering mechanics, you do electrical, you do chemical, you do civil. So you have to take classes in each one of the disciplines.
So much broader.
Much broader, yeah. Yeah, because if you think about it, when you have systems, rarely are systems one-dimensional. If you have a motor, you need to control that motor. Is not just electrical, but it's software behind it. So if that motor needs to move an arm like this, well, these are linkages, right? So that's engineering mechanics where you have to determine linkages, what's the range of coverage, how much load the linkages need to. So a lot of times when you're developing systems, they want you to have a broader knowledge so that
this aligns with the type of thinking that you had when you were getting your licensing, the 3-prong approach, right? Yep. Where you needed to know what you were doing, but what it was going to do. And being able to articulate it and explain it and document it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
exactly. Yeah,
it's all lining up.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these stories. When I hear these stories, I'm like, you're saying it, but I'm listening to it, and I'm going, okay, well, that happened to him so that this could happen to him. And if that didn't happen, he wouldn't have gotten to that. It's kind of cool to hear somebody's origin story and kind of see how it, like, the dominoes fall the way that they do. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. So I wound up changing my major to mechanical engineering. I took a bunch of electives in electrical engineering. and basically wound up graduating. And sure enough, Lockheed had made me an offer. And at the time, I had gotten married already when I graduated. But basically, I wound up with offers from Lockheed. I had an offer from SKF USA, which is a bearing company.
Okay.
I had an offer from Cargill. And at the time, my wife was also graduating. And I asked her, says, you don't have a job yet. So for me, I'm pretty employable. So where do you think you could find work?
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, definitely the Cargill option. Because there were about 8 companies that could hire her in that
surrounding area,
in that particular location where Cargill was placing me. So I took the Cargill job.
Nice. Now, what does she run the 40 in?
She was not
as fast. Okay.
She was how would I say? She's a different kind of athlete.
Yeah.
She's how would I say? Well, you can tell me how to put this, but she has a PhD in animal nutrition. She has a master's in dairy science, and she's a vet.
Holy cow. All right. So
I tell her when schools see her coming,
you got an intimidating Thanksgiving table, man. I'm telling you, there's some deep conversations happening.
Yep. So she's one of those, gifted, talented, smart people that
very purpose driven. It sounds like.
That's
great.
She's in the ag sector, and she loves that work.
That's awesome. So you take the gig. What's the first role?
So my first role was as I ran the maintenance team on this huge facility. So
you went right into managing other people.
They had me. The reason they hired me was because of my background. I understood, motors. I understood, different systems. So basically, they wanted to make me a process engineer. But in order to be a process engineer, I had to learn all about the equipment that was at this facility. The facility is called Illinois Cereal Mills.
Okay.
It's in Paris, Illinois, which is about 3.5 hours from Chicago. And basically, so they brought me in, and I had to manage 26 knuckleheads. Mind you, I'm in Southern Illinois.
Yeah.
I'm a person of color.
Yeah. That had to be interesting.
Yeah. so to say the least, there's some dynamics there at play. But
luckily, all the time that you had spent on teams, you understood the dichotomy of personalities, right?
Of course, yeah. So I won them over. Actually, some of those guys.
You're like, hey, you want a race? If I win the race, you have to comply.
No, I mean, really, they recognized that, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
He understands this. I mean, I would order all the components. Like, how do you know what to order for this?
Yeah.
And then they're like, so they were
probably
surprised.
took you a week, and they were like, this dude's brilliant. Let's fall in line here.
Yeah, so they had this sign at the entrance of the department that said trespassers will be violated.
Okay.
And they took one of those signs and they modified it.
Okay.
And it said trespassers will be violated, instead of prosecutor. Whatever.
Violated. Yeah. I love it.
Like, don't come in here if you
unless you know what's good for you, you're not coming in here.
Yeah. And it was a union shop, and sure enough, after about a month and a half there, those guys really appreciated all the things that I did, what I knew.
Yeah.
They would invite me out to their cookouts, go hunting, and all of that.
Nice.
So,
what's your leadership style?
So I always lead by example.
Okay.
So I never ask
lead from the front.
Yeah. I never ask people to do things that I wouldn't do. And basically, I win people over because of it. I bend over backwards to help people that mean to do well.
Mm-hmm.
You have people that drag their feet. They don't want anything to do with me because I'm holding them accountable.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. So after Cargill, I went to work for a company. Actually, it would be my third company I worked for. It's called Cinch Connectors.
Okay.
It was owned by a large French conglomerate called Safran. So I started there as an engineering manager. I started there as a design engineer. And then I wound up becoming like a supervisory position, but then I wound up becoming an engineering manager where I was managing a department. And so when they gave me an office, I told them, no, I don't want that office. It was like, where do you want to be?
I'm going to be in the pit, man.
No, so I got myself right at the entrance of where all the engineers were that were reporting to me. And it's like, why do you want to be there? He says because I know what robs a lot of time from engineers. And what's that? It says a lot of people, especially in the morning, come to chit chat, catch up, and whatever. So what I would do is, as soon as I see somebody walking, what I would do is towards our pit, I would just get up and go right to the front of the door, and I filled the entire door frame.
Yeah.
Right? So you would see people make U-turns.
That's one way to increase productivity.
And start walking in the other direction. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, because they knew.
No small talk, man. It's time to do it.
It's time to do it. Yeah. So they were surprised. I mean, we got a lot of work done. And so sure enough, when I had other managers exiting the company, and I wound up managing a couple of departments at the company at the same time.
Okay. So all along, you're working for these large companies. Like, these are big companies that you're working for. They're like cities as far as population, right?
Yeah, Cargill is a big company. Cargill is easily, over 150,000 employees.
It's crazy.
$200 billion in revenue.
Yeah, it's just massive. Yeah. I mean, at what point in, now you just mentioned your third job. At what point do you start to say to yourself, I feel an entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, so I'll take a step back. So my parents sort of, even though they were working two jobs, right? They were really, how would I say, crafty in the things that they did. I'll give you an example. So when my dad decided to become a superintendent of that building, so there's 11 kids, right? So he gave us an apartment on the first floor that we didn't pay rent on. Mm-hmm. And basically we had triple, you have bunk beds, like double. No, we had triple.
3 of them, triple. Good Lord.
So basically my dad asked the owner of the building, hey, can we use the basement? And the owner of the building's like, no, there's boilers down there. It's just rocks and stuff. The foundation was these huge rock walls and all of that. So he says, the kids want a playroom down there, make a playroom for them or whatever, right? So my dad took that as a yes. So basically my dad wound up putting a drop ceiling. Mind you, the building is shaped like a U. It's a 48 family apartment building. So we took one half of the basement and we put drop ceiling. We put tile on the floor, like ceramic tile. We sheetrocked the whole thing, with outlets. Yeah. So we had now 5 bedrooms.
There's always savings, but it's about way more than savings alone. Total Technology Solutions Group redefines managed print services. Excellence is the minimum standard. TTSG is a true managed print service provider, deeply understanding your technology and business goals. Your business is unique. Our solutions are tailored to your current and future business goals. Our customer-first approach empowers and delights. TTSG can ensure your technology environment will scale as your business does. So as you navigate business and constant change, partner with TTSG for premium advisement and seamless implementation of your technology goals. We set the bar high. Your people deserve it. Peace of mind, powerful innovation, TTSG.com. There you go. I mean, awesome. Just resourcefulness.
Yeah, so basically we wound up having our own laundry room, the whole works. So basically my dad went to the landlord and say, hey, here's your keys. He goes, you're quitting on me? He goes, no, I moved to the basement. He's like, I told you not to go down there. He goes, you need to come and see
Come see it, yeah.
He goes, I don't go there because it's the South Bronx.
Yeah.
This guy, my dad used to collect the rent, and my dad used to have to drive like 45 minutes north.
Yeah, to deliver it.
They used to meet at a coffee shop, and that's the guy did not come to the building.
Unbelievable.
So my dad's like, why don't you just come on an early Sunday morning, like 7 a.m., and you're able to see what we did. So sure enough, he came one Sunday morning and he was surprised. He was like, "This is like a palace here.
Yeah,
you're living better than me."
Awesome. Yeah, he's like, "No, I'm charging you rent."
So then he goes, "Can you do that to the other side?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you rent it out.
So we did. So he went from us not paying any rent on the first floor apartment, which always coveted apartments,
to a break even.
To not even a break even. Now he has 3 apartments that he's renting.
On the other side.
He's renting the one on the first floor, and we created 2 apartments on the other side.
Wow. So right there, your dad is like showing an entrepreneurial spirit and how to take nothing and turn it into something.
Yeah. So that they did that, and then my mom, she was gifted couture, where she did dresses.
Okay.
And she worked at this place called Joven Blouse. It was owned by an Italian. His name is Joe. So my mom learned Italian before she learned English.
No kidding. Wow.
Yep, that is the case. So basically, she wound up working there, and she got to be such good friends with the owner that the owner used to come sometimes, like for holidays, and used to come with his family and used to visit us. So my mom popped the question to him and said, "Hey, Joe, I want to have my own cut and sew shop just like you." He goes, "When did you get that idea?" And she's like, "Well, I've always wanted to do it." And she goes, "Okay, says both my mom and my aunt work there." He goes, "If I help you start, your sister can't leave. She has to stay with me."
I love it.
Yeah, so he goes, so my mom kept after it, and then he finally said, "Okay, let's do it." So basically, he gave my mom her first machines. He helped her find a locale. But the way that it started was that any overflow work that he couldn't get finished, he didn't, he was done. He wasn't going to grow anymore. He goes, "I'm going to pass it to you." So any extra work,
Yeah, just the overflow.
just the overflow. So that's how my mom started her cut and sew shop. So
here you are witnessing this. You're seeing immigrant parents that have 11 children in a tough financial spot, smiles on. You seem to be the type of person where you don't sweat the small stuff. Like, you've seen so much, there's no reason to sweat the small stuff. I would imagine that came from the fact that your parents just took whatever was in front of them and dealt with it.
Yep. I mean, we didn't shop at regular supermarkets.
Yeah.
My dad used to go to shop at Pick and Pay, a Bronx Terminal Market, the Fulton Fish Market.
Okay.
He used to go and shop where the restaurants used to go shop just to get, more discounted rates.
Like wholesale.
Yeah, because he used to buy 100-pound bag of rice.
Oh my gosh.
100-pound bag of beans,
Yeah.
Think about feeding 13 people.
I mean, I'm the youngest of 6 kids. Everything was a casserole. Things that could last, right? Yeah. So I can't imagine 11. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, so we always had that idea of how to do more with less and how to find savings here, right? And always trying to find ways to make ends meet and do the best with what we have.
Yeah, love it. So that is in your mind, and then when is that switch flip where you go, you know what, I'm going on my own?
So I told my wife, I said, "Look, here we are, we're 13 years into our careers." It says, "You're overeducated. I've been to 7 different universities, but yet, we're really good employees. We're producing a lot for the companies that we work for, but we're really not having as much of an impact as we could have." Right. So that's when I started formulating that idea of maybe having my own company. So I did have a couple of sort of things that I started doing while I was working. So
this is early 2000s?
Yeah, this is in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, I would say. So I did start like this little company called US Casters while I was working. And I was working with one of my best friends here, Dennis Miller. He owns Dandy Pallet and Packaging. And he was the first person that we rented from in the Chicagoland area.
Okay.
So he had just renovated this apartment in Schaumburg. And he wound up renting to us. And he's like, "These 2 kids right out of college, they're going to tear this place up."
Yeah.
He would come and knock like every other day. Yeah. "Is everything okay?
Is everything good in there?" Yeah.
And we always,
let me see the drywall.
We always used to invite him in, so we got to be pretty good friends that way. But anyway, so he had a packaging company and he had a customer that needed casters. And basically, so I wound up sourcing those casters from outside the US. And I would import them, and then I would sort of resell them to him, and he would distribute them.
Okay.
Yeah, so we did that for a while until it didn't work anymore, and we wound up, divesting of it. And then basically, I wound up. We were also importing coffee from the Dominican Republic at one time before the big coffee craze. So we always had the idea of wanting to do our own thing. But for some reason or other, we ran out of time or just getting busier.
Wasn't the thing. Wasn't your path.
It wasn't the path, right? And then what wound up happening is when I was there at Cinch Connectors, when I started having to manage more and more resources or people, and I was managing a couple of departments, it came to a head, meaning that I had to travel with all the marketing and sales folks, and I give technical presentations.
Got it.
I also had to do all the design. A lot of times when you're working with products that we were working with, you have to go through FAA certifications, those kind of things. So basically, I had to be in the manufacturing plants quite a bit. We have manufacturing plants in Oklahoma and Mexico and all of that. And also I was traveling to China quite a bit because we wound up developing a network of vendors or suppliers out there that would do components for us that we would integrate into our products.
So you're having to articulate this on the supplier side,
many levels,
the customer side, internally to make sure that
Yeah.
you start to develop these communication skills with all different segments of the business.
Yeah, I mean, I had situations where the marketing guys were supposed to give the presentation, and then they wound up getting sick or whatever.
So damn technical, though, for a marketing.
Yeah, and then like Art.
Yeah. Yeah, get on there.
Yeah, go ahead and do it. So basically I wound up starting to burn out.
Okay.
Yeah, so with Cinch connectors, I think I have 7 or 9 patents. I haven't checked, but yeah, so I have around 9 patents with them, and I have 3 software patents that are
nice
that are in the process. But what wound up happening was I went to the CEO. I was really good friends with them, and I said, "Hey, Mike, I think I'm going to step out. I think I'm done." And he goes, "Not on my watch."
Okay.
So I was like, "What
reeling you back
mean?"
in. Yeah.
Yeah. He goes, "No, you can't leave now. So you have these projects and all of that." He goes, "But give me a couple of months and then come back to me." So after like 3 months, before even the 3 months, he gives me a call, say, "Hey, you want to go to lunch?" And I was like, "Sure, let's go to lunch." So we go to lunch, and he goes, "We're under due diligence. And, within about a month's time, we should close. After that, if you want to take off, you can." It says, "Don't mess up my pie," kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sure enough, they closed. This new company bought out Cinch, and basically he wound up getting a little bit of a golden parachute.
There you go.
And he takes
He's
off.
out.
He was out. So then I put in
you
my
go,
notice.
I go.
Yes, I put in my notice afterwards, and they're like, "You ain't going nowhere. It's just, you have these 2 projects that need to be certified."
Yeah.
We were doing at the time. We were doing, in this particular projects were for Boeing. So it's a fuel quantity indicating system, which is like mission critical kind of stuff. So all those things need to get certified, and then maybe we'll consider.
See, you're amazing, because when I resigned, people are like, "Thank God, please go." They're telling you got to stay. We're definitely different cats. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So basically, I wound up getting those 2 major projects done, and then I really put in my resignation.
You're final.
Yeah. So then they're like, hand this paper to me. It's like, "Hey, you know what? You have these patents. Although your name is on them, they belong to the company. So there's a non-compete. So that means that you can't operate in these areas." So I was like, "That's not a problem." It says, I'm gonna be going into a different space. So I told him I'm going into the software space, and basically that's how I transitioned into Lexicon Network.
Okay.
And mind you, even after I quit. I remember, I think I quit in June, and July came and I got a paycheck in the mail.
Okay.
From Cinch. So I called them and I said, "Hey, I think you made a mistake." And they're like, "No." I called the head of HR. She goes, "The CEO said to pay you." And I was like, "Why?" He goes, "Because he knows what you're doing." He goes, he knows that, Lockheed called you. He knows that Raytheon called you, and you helped them out because they had a line down condition, and they wanted to find out, how to overcome that or whatever. So I got a lot of calls from customers, and I would just answer them, say, "Hey, speak to this engineer, have him look at this documentation."
So the feedback got to the CEO that you were just answering questions, even though you didn't work there
anymore.
Isn't that amazing? Just be a good person and money finds you.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, so I did that, and finally I went and talked to him and says, "You know what, that's going to die down." So basically, I think they paid me like 2 months after I left. Yeah,
a little severance for a few phone calls.
Yeah. So that happened, and then I finally wound up, spending full time on Lexicon.
So Lexicon Networks, if you were going to give a 30-second or 1 minute elevator pitch, just so our listeners can get an idea of what it is that you specialize in.
Yeah, so Lexicon Networks. So we're an IT consulting company. We started out in the application integration space back in 2008, 2009. Basically, we became an IBM partner. We wound up extending the application integration. So when I say application integration, we're integrating things like Salesforce.com, SAP, Oracle EBS, NetSuite, right now, ADP, systems to other systems. So basically, you wind up transferring information or in data from one system to another.
Okay. So they can communicate with each other.
So they can communicate with each other.
Is that like API? Is that what they?
Yeah. So it's the API economy, basically. But in this case, a lot of times it's, different systems that the company owns that are siloed data, and they want to share data between those 2 systems. Also, this really comes down to master data management, where you actually want to control the source of the truth. So if you have two places where you may input, let's say, customer data, you want to find out if there's a disparity.
Where did it come from?
Yeah, where did it come from, or what's the source of the truth? What should we rely on? Kind of.
So who's the ultimate beneficiary of your service?
So it depends. So the ultimate beneficiary sometimes is the internal customer of the company, but a lot of times it's also the external customer. So we have done projects that we call 360-degree view of the customer, where everything from the time that a customer is starting to investigate if they want to buy something, right, to the time that they actually get the order.
Okay.
Right. So basically everybody gets to benefit. We've done a lot of e-commerce integrations where we're doing Shopify integrations, right? Where we have a client here locally that does fitness equipment, and they wanted to be able to connect their Shopify to their SAP.
Okay.
Right. So basically, both the front end, the customer's a better customer experience, and on the back end, it's a better experience for the employees that are handling this. No more double data entry.
Yeah.
Being notified when something's going wrong or when an order is happening.
So you're the glue in between all these big software programs, so that they can communicate together and stick together and effectively
communicate,
maximize returns too.
Yeah,
because if you have one piece of software and another one, and you got to go to both to figure out an answer, and then you on your own you got to figure out what actually is the truth. That's complex. That takes a lot of time. You got to have the right people to understand that. So you're essentially taking all that out of the way for them.
Yeah, not only that, building scalability. So I'll give you, for instance, so we worked with a company that some people might know is called Signal Brands.
Okay.
And they had Shopify as their e-commerce solution. So think about now Christmas and e-commerce.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Or Black Friday and e-commerce.
It's going nuts.
So, you might have, let's say you have 500 orders a day. But on Black Friday now, it's like
3,000, 4,000.
Yeah. So it's your system, it's your system built to handle that. Are the integrations that are in place scalable? If you're hitting an API and that API is not available, what do you do?
Right? Yeah. Your customer service is going to go haywire.
Exactly. So we build all kinds of contingencies around that, making sure that solutions are scalable, making sure that there are what we call error handlers in place that allow you to mitigate, critical situations.
Who would be your ICP?
Well, I'm our ideal customer. Integration cuts across the board.
Yeah.
From SMB to Fortune 100. At the beginning, almost all of our clients were Fortune 100, Fortune 500.
Yeah.
But now with the affordability that we have today, that has really gone all the way down to the SMB marketplace.
Might have taken you a little while to refine it enough to make it, cost effective for the SMB.
Yeah, and not only that. So initially, there was a lot of hard coding that went on, but hard coding is brittle, meaning it breaks down a lot. So when they started developing these commercial off-the-shelf products that you could utilize to do these integrations, it wound up, really opening up the space. So I'll give you an idea. So in 2008, Salesforce was still probably under $1 billion, or 2005, 2008, right? So they were just coming to get known in the marketplace. And that being the case, what really made Salesforce pop was the ability to integrate that CRM with the ERP.
Yeah.
So we managed to ride a little bit of that wave. So we got on board with a company called Cast Iron Systems.
Okay.
That they had a physical appliance that you could use to integrate both cloud to on-premise to on-premise. It really didn't matter. So what Salesforce wound up doing is that they wound up having them be their preferred partner. And when they would sell Salesforce, then they would sell the integration.
Okay.
And although they didn't do the work, but it was all on their paper. Yeah, and basically that helped them grow because now it's not siloed data.
Yeah.
Now you can go all the way from managing, the top of the funnel.
And they got holistic.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
The whole thing. You went from managing the top of the funnel, identifying, an opportunity, validating that opportunity, turning that opportunity into an order.
And then categorizing it so you knew where it was so you can now measure your conversion rates.
Right. And now taking that order and automatically passing it down to the ERP.
Got it.
So now that order, when it goes
now
to
HR can see it, operations can see it.
Yeah, so operations can see it. So if purchasing needs to buy any products because of that order, right? If manufacturing needs to look at the bill of materials,
so procurement knows what they need to do.
Exactly. So all those people get notified.
They're all out now in front. So you're helping them to be proactive instead of reactionary.
And it's a full circle. So when that order goes through that manufacturing process, right? When that order is ready for delivery, the customer gets notified.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's ultimate customer service communication.
Exactly. So that gives you an idea of how integration works. And it's just not in that sales space. We also do it at the HR realm.
Okay.
So for very large companies, we've done a full, what we call 360-degree view of the employee, where there's learning management, there's benefits, there's
certifications, trainings,
the whole works, right? So we're integrating these different systems and keeping people notified and abreast of everything that they need to know.
Love it. So Lexicon Networks takes off. I mean, it takes off, it scales very fast.
Yes.
Then we all know what happened in 2020. And similar to us here at TTSG, GSD Technologies, and well, not 2020 because that was born out of it, but it's like taking a sword and just cutting it in half, right? And so you're in the process now of kind of it's time to go again, right?
Yes.
And you're redoing your marketing, you're redoing your website, you've got some new product launches. Like you are, I think the first time I talked to you, alluded to the fact that you were like, damn it, we're kind of pissed if you want to be honest. Like we had it up to X amount of employees and it was rolling and the world just gave us what it gave us. And right now we're hell bent on getting it back to the next level and you're on that climb right now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, the good thing is that when you build solid foundations, those are things that are going to hold you up through the tough times. And I'll give you an example. So when we were working a lot with IBM on the integration side, they say, hey, you guys are really good, but you're one-dimensional. We have over 90 products in our bag, and you're handling 2 out of the 90.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, hey, why don't you guys pick another product that you guys would like to work with us on? So basically, we wound up picking their mobile-first foundation, which is all the mobile apps. So as we started developing mobile apps, we quickly realized that, hey, there needs to be like a web app, a mother app that controls all these apps. So wound up actually developing a web app team, a mobile team.
Okay.
Right. And
everybody needs an app now.
And did did really well there. So then they're like, well, okay, now you have that portfolio. This is, why don't you guys take up the AI piece? And at the time, this is back in 2017. They say, hey, you know what? Watson's going to be really big. So the Watson APIs, and this is around speech to text, text to speech, image, right? So this is what we call narrow AI. So we wound up taking up the artificial intelligence piece, and we started developing, products around it as well as developing, actual projects for companies. Yep. So wound up having that foundation, and then, like you said, COVID hit. Yeah. Right when we started to bring out a product.
You're moving, yeah.
Yeah, we're moving and grooving. So we came out with a product that we thought was going to do well in the marketplace. And sure enough, COVID sort of...
Yeah, bada boom. Not good.
Yeah, not good. So we wound up having to sort of regroup. And yeah, so at the time, we were approaching about 100 employees. And by the time COVID was said and done, we were cut in half.
Wow. Yeah. Same. I mean, that story is just told too much, too often.
Yep. Yeah, but so as we said, these are all learning experiences that are there to shape you and prepare you for the next steps.
So as you've now started your climb, right? You're already in the climb and things are going. You then have this idea and you're co-founder of this, which is Max-Grad, right? Give us the concept behind that, because you're heavy into AI now as well, right?
Yes.
So give us kind of the concept behind Max-Grad. Like, what problem existed where you looked at that and said, we can solve that?
So we've done a lot of work for post-secondary institutions, colleges, and universities, and we're always asking institutions like, hey, what's your pain point? What are the things that you're struggling with? What are the things that you see coming down the pipe that you say, hey, if we had a solution for that, we could probably, try to mitigate that from being a problem. So when we were doing that, we had COD as a customer here locally, College of DuPage, and they told us, hey, you know what? We have this issue where we're a 2-year school. We have a lot of students come through here successfully, but they always go to another school to finish.
Yeah.
So a lot of times they would have taken the necessary courses to get an associate's, but they never apply for it. They just go ahead and go to a 4-year school, and then sometimes they don't even graduate from that 4-year school, and they don't have an associate's and they don't have a bachelor's, they don't have anything. So on top of it,
well, they got some debt.
Yeah, they might have some debt. Yeah. So, but on top of it, the state also does not disperse to them the amount of funding that they could probably get because they're not showing a higher graduation rate.
Got it.
So the federal funds and state funds are dependent upon how many students they graduate, how successful they're being. So basically, so they were experiencing that. And so we said, we would like to learn more. So we sat down with the registrar and some of the other department heads, and we found out more about their problem. And we found out that they have student information systems, but those auditing programs that they have can only audit 1 degree at a time, and you have to have declared that degree as a student.
Okay.
And most students that go through a community college, they're
going to get their general.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we wound up developing a product that actually is able to analyze all of the classes taken by a student against all of the degrees offered at an institution. So it's a mass data analysis.
Okay.
And basically what we do is we take the catalog of the school and we turn it into code.
Outstanding.
Yeah. So
this is benefiting the university's ability to seek additional grants.
I'll tell you how COD used it. So what COD did is that they used it to identify their completers.
Got it.
So why do they want to identify their completers? Because now that they can say, hey, I found these 3,000 students that had completed, right? I'm going to reach out to them and give them an associate's. And mind you, they're going to give it to them not in a general studies degree, but in the actual degree that they completed it in. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that now when they report that to the state, that school gets the funding that they deserve, right? The second way that they used it was to reach out to students who had stopped out. So basically, students that started going there that didn't finish at COD and not come back. So what they were able to do was analyze those students that had stopped out. And basically, we would give them a detailed information. Hey, they're closest to completed an associate's in arts. These are the classes that they're missing. Tell them
so they might be able to influence them back in.
Exactly. So then they build marketing campaigns. So, hey, you're this close towards completing.
You're this close, come on in.
These are the classes that you need. If you call us within the next 30 days, we're going to give you $1,000 scholarship.
So everything leads back to revenue generation, which leads to profitability. That's all. That's right. That's the thing that you're doing.
And then the third way that they use the tool, which we never envisioned, is that they would analyze who was 90% complete. And they would take that list of students and then they would check that against what classes the students were taking. And then if those classes would complete their path, then they would send an email to that student and say, hey, you need to fill out this degree conferment form. So that way, before they transferred out of the school, the student actually received that degree.
That's great.
Right. So, and now, I mean, the way that it's being utilized is that you have schools that are now doing stackable degrees, where they say, hey, you're majoring in this, but if you take this extra class, we can give you a certificate in this, a diploma in that, even before they get their associates or before they get their bachelor's.
So there's a benefit to the university, but there's a benefit to the end user, the student, big time.
And the economy.
And the economy,
as a whole. Yep.
It makes people more employable.
More employable, yep.
Yeah.
So we started Max-Grad out with that. We call that product now Degree Compass.
Okay.
But we term Max-Grad, it's a brand of Lexicon Networks. It's powered by Lexicon Networks. And what Max-Grad does is it's a consulting shop. We consult with post-secondary institutions, and we have products that we have developed that align well.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all. You're gonna have a consultation with with the powers that be at the university, understand their problems, then determine whether or not you already have a software solution, or you might modify something in order to appeal to their particular issue.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. So there's an organization called CALE, the Council on Adult Experiential Learning. They're headquartered out of Indianapolis, but they have offices here in Chicago. And we worked with them, right? We did a work for hire where we actually did something called credit for prior learning. So that means if you were out in the workplace, let's say, and you worked in the marketing department with John, right? But you had no degree and you've been working there for a year and a half, and you learned about marketing campaigns and you learned about, the basics of marketing 101, understanding the customer journey and all of that, right? So it's being able to take that knowledge that you acquired while you were working and convert it into college credit.
See, I need this because I am not a college grad. I went to 4 years of college, didn't finish. College just was not for me. I had a painting company during, and I was going door to door to do the bids and estimates in affluent neighborhoods in Barrington and Hoffman Estates and what have you. And I'm sitting down with these couples that are, six-figure couples, and I'm at 21 closing them to give me a $4,000 deposit check right now, and I'll paint their house in the summer when I get back from school. And they did. So I was like, I might be pretty good at sales. So I'm at school, I'm sitting in these classes, and I'm like, this professor's never sold anything. What do they know about business? Well, shame on me. I shouldn't have been thinking that way. But school was just not for me. I want to get into the world. I got into sales and kind of took off, but I still have this regret where like, man, I should have a degree. Yeah, now I've got all these skills, but I don't want to go to 4 years of college.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it afterwards. Yeah, but so they have a bunch of schools now that are using this Credit Predictor Pro to do just that. So to take students who had either have some prior college credit or no college prior credit and say, hey, if you come back, we're going to give you these classes, towards your degree. And that way it shortens your path to graduation. So now instead of you having
you're saving money too.
Yeah, instead of then having to be there a year, now you're there, for 6 months.
Yeah.
Right. And they win because now they're able to show a graduate.
Well, they wouldn't get me. I wouldn't come there if I had to do a year and a half, 2 years.
Exactly.
Especially when I feel like I know some stuff about marketing at this point. Like you're going to make me take the general class that I might be able to teach. Like, so yeah, that is so interesting.
So that's called the Credit Predictor.
There are so many people.
You know how many there are? 42 million.
It is unbelievable. If you could get half of them to graduate, it just changes the spirit of that person, changes everything. That piece of paper.
Yeah, so there's 42 million Americans with some college credit but no degree.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. So this thing's going to blow up. It's Max-Grad, folks. You got to take a look at it. The website will be up by the time this airs, so it should be up and rolling
tomorrow. Yeah. So basically, so that's what Max-Grad does. So I'll give you another example of the similar things. I was at an event. I was in a CALE event 2 years ago here in Chicago, and I got to talk to the dean of National University in California. And again, I always ask the same question. It says, hey, what is a major pain point that you're having that you wish
it's a great question.
That you had a solution to?
Wave a magic wand at it and make it go away. Yeah.
So he goes, my department, he manages the credentials department. So the credentials department is where people go for teachers, to get their certification so that they could become a teacher.
Got it.
So he goes, look, the state of California passed some new policy that allows students to obtain their certification without having to take a test. The thing is that it's policy, and policy has a myriad of ways of being interpreted, and not everybody's adhering to it the right way. And he goes, I have a backlog of 700 students that are waiting for an evaluation. I have no way of doing this. My department is not built for this, but we have all these students, coming in and wanting to do this. So he goes, if you could address that problem, he says,
you're hired.
Yeah, that would take a big headache off my head. I said, you don't have to be involved. I says, but put me in touch with your credentials department and I'll see if there's something that we could actually do. So basically, he did that. He put us in touch with the credentials department. We set up a meeting. We met with them, and then we wound up having a series of meetings. And then we did some level requirements gathering, and we came up with a proposal. And that proposal turned into a project. And now that is an actual product that we launched in mid-August. It's called X-Wave.
X-Wave.
Yeah, X-Wave, EXWAIVE. And what do we do there? We take a student's coursework, right? And we evaluate it against that policy that was issued by the state of California.
Got it.
Yeah, it's called the California Teacher Credentialing Commission that issued the ruling. So that gets assessed, right, against that policy. And basically, then there's a determination given whether the student meets the requirements or they do not. Now, the beauty of
You're saving time.
Oh, I can tell you. So basically, we had students that started using the product. And mind you, so there's about 252 institutions that could use the product in the state of California. We just started with one, with National University. So they have a department of 15 employees. And we got an unsolicited email from their department head saying, hey, we've calculated that in the last 2 months, we've saved over 1,000 hours of work.
Wow.
By using X-Wave.
That's crazy. I mean, that's like a 10x increase in productivity. It's crazy.
It is. They couldn't believe it. I mean, before their phones would be ringing off the hook. The number of emails coming in from students was unimaginable. And they had to manage all these documents that the students were sending. And then they also had to work with the professors that would do the evaluations. Yeah, so basically we streamlined that entire process.
I would imagine the hard part, like when I think about this, I think like, how am I going to pull up all my previous records? I'm like so far, like when I left, I checked out, left. Like I'm going in the business world, I'm going to go do it. Never even thought about it. Probably 15 years before I even crossed my mind, like maybe I should get this just to do it. And you know, time is gone, another 10 years has gone by. I wouldn't even know where to start to get my information. And then once I had the information, I wouldn't know what to do with it when I had it. This is awesome because like, is part of the process helping to find the information, then disseminate what the information is, and then putting together a plan, an execution plan?
Yeah, so in this case for X-Wave in particular,
that's more policy.
So X-Wave, it's more for students that want to be teachers.
Got it.
And these students that want to be teachers, in order to become a teacher, the state of California provides 2 routes. Either you take the test, or you prove that the classes that you took are in compliance
with us.
They meet the subject matter competency compliance that the state has set.
But then on Max-Grad, that's more in line with what I was just talking about. You're going to help me to find my info.
No, that's Credit Predictor. So Credit Predictor, what you're trying to do is, hey, what's my prior experience and what can I get credit for?
Got it.
Right. So again, I mean, these are 3 solutions that I've just discussed, all within the education space that can have a dramatic impact, not just on the individuals, universities, but also on our economy.
All powered by Lexicon Networks. That's awesome. So what's the future look like for you? Are we breaking records in 2025?
Oh, for sure.
Let's go.
Yeah. So we do have some new products coming out. And we're also continuing on that workforce development side. So we're going to be putting out a tool in the workforce development space in conjunction with Kale, knock on wood here. So we're in the last details of that. We're also in the process of developing an application that TTSG is going to be one of the first guys to try it out.
Let's go. I love it.
So it's called DocuBucket.ai.
Okay.
And basically, you'll be able to create a chat bot in 5 minutes.
No kidding. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, so you'll be able to...
So for customer service...
it could be for both internal...
on your website.
We always look at things holistically. So this chat bot could be for your website. We can also deploy it within your internal communications. So say you use Slack, use Teams.
What about through SMS?
Through SMS, right? So basically WhatsApp, Twitter, whatever channel you have of communication, we can create a contact with a specific name, and people will be able to interact with that channel.
Oh, it's gonna be bad when that becomes the top salesperson in the company. We're gonna have to get some people. We're not taking a chatbot on President's Club. They're boring.
No, so this is Gen AI piece, or in some cases is narrow AI, because I'll give you, for instance, let's say that you're in HR and you have 500 employees. So basically we can deploy an internal, let's say on Slack, an internal Slack that says, HR help. And basically you can ask anything HR of that chat box.
Of that chat box. And it'll answer it like that.
And it'll answer it, yeah.
That's awesome. That is so cool. So this is going to be rolling out in addition to all these other things that you have going.
Yeah, so we have that in March. It should be up and running.
Okay. That's amazing.
So,
ladies and gentlemen, you have now met for an hour and a half Mr. Art Caines. I mean, this is a story. This is a gentleman who has seen it all. He's done it all, and he's going to continue to do more. Lexicon Networks in the Chicagoland area, but you're international, right?
Yes.
I mean, you'll go anywhere. So I hope that we've given you some really good information. But now I want to get into a little bit of the flavor of art, although we started the podcast that way. But again, there's two things I'd ask you to do. Number one, take a look at Lexicon Networks. And number two, take a look at Max-Grad. And then the other websites will be going. I'm sure there'll be information on both those websites to help you to find their additional products. So please do that. But we are going to do a little segment here that we call Quick Hits. So I'm going to ask you 5 rapid fire questions. You answer them how you want to answer them. We'll just get to know kind of how you think and a little bit of pop culture type of stuff here. And then I want you to wrap up this bad boy with a little bit of inspiration, maybe some mindset stuff of kind of how you, when your feet hit the ground in the morning, kind of how you think. Are you ready for quick hit number 1?
Sure am.
All right, quick hit number 1. The best sporting event that you ever attended in your life.
The best sporting event I ever attended in my life. Well, it was, I got to go to all of the Marlins Cubs games back in 2003. Yes. And I was about 4 seats over from Bartman.
Oh my gosh. God, I wish you would have been the one. I wish you would have put him in a headlock.
Yeah, but what I always tell people is that Bartman didn't cost us the game.
No.
The game was cost by the shortstop who missed.
Oh my gosh, Alex Gonzalez.
Yeah, he missed an easy double play ball.
Oh, it was a Sunday hop like never before.
Yep, and he missed that easy double play ball to put the game to rest.
I'll tell you what, I love Dusty Baker, but one thing I didn't like is that he didn't go out to the mound after that play. Calm down. I think it was Mark Pryor was pitching. Calm down, Pryor. Bring in the whole infield. Everyone take a deep breath. But, you know, tough to criticize a Hall of Fame coach and player. He's pretty amazing, but I wish that would have happened. That had to be amazing. I was at game 3. Sammy Sosa hit a home run over the camera tower in center field, I want to say. It was the longest home run that I've ever seen hit the center field at Wrigley Field. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah, and the best thing about it was, although I was rooting for the Cubs, so one of my friends was on the Marlins, and I got to keep their their World Series ring for a month.
No kidding.
So he let me borrow it for a month.
Oh, that's cool. You're like, yeah, I was on their team, no problem. I got to tell you another Cubs thing. I was at a horrible game. I was at the Sammy Sosa corked bat game.
Oh, is that right?
Sitting in the 6th row behind the Cubs dugout. He breaks the bat, and you could feel an energy in the stadium when the ump picked it up. Like there was it kind of was like, oh no,
it's
like oh no. It was like watching your hero just like get beat up.
And you know what? That's totally unnecessary. I mean, yeah. What I tell people is that baseball's a psychological game. So people try to find different edges.
Mm-hmm.
With the power that Sammy Sosa has,
he didn't need it.
He didn't need that stuff, right?
No.
But then again, it's like one of those things. If you're slumping, you're not doing well. People are always looking for an edge, right? So it's and when he was doing it, it was more common than people realize.
Oh my gosh, that's my son asked me last night. He said, "Dad, do you think Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame?" I said, "I think it's an absolute travesty if he's not." I hate the fact that he went to that, but every player in the league was doing it at that point.
Well, Barry Bonds was late to the game.
And he was already amazing.
No, but the reason I say he was late to the game, he did it because the league was not holding other players accountable.
Yeah.
You follow me?
He was watching guys in the locker room put a syringe in their hiney, and he's like, what the hell?
Yeah, so basically he was like, well, if I'm going to remain, visible, because in reality, he didn't need to.
Yeah,
I mean, if you
he was hitting 40 home runs without it.
Right?
Yeah.
So basically, so it's one of those things where if you're a competitor, sometimes it drives you to do things that you otherwise wouldn't do, and it's unfortunate. And and he's being held accountable for it.
Yeah. Well, we need to stop that business because I got to tell you, that guy, if you could put him in the Hall of Fame, just what he did with the Pirates and the first 2 seasons with the Giants, he was that good.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't throw a fastball past him. He had one season where he walked Like,
ungodly amount of times, like 170
like
times.
average 2 walks a game or some crazy number, just like
well,
unbelievable.
The thing is that when he was on, he didn't miss.
No.
So
did not miss.
Yeah, he did not miss. And also, if you look at Barry Bonds, his swing was constructed in a way that if he got jammed, it would go right over the shortstop's head for a hit.
So
even when he wasn't on, he was still
a little
on
duck
base.
snort.
Yeah,
little duck snort.
On base, so.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, but it's unfortunate you're talking about baseball. So if you look, Pete Rose just passed away. That man should be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
Right? And Major League Baseball, unfortunately, was not fair to him. We just had an incident with Shohei Ohtani and gambling.
Nothing.
Think about it. Just think about the situation. If you do the math, Shohei Ohtani up to that point had earned $35 million in the major leagues. And you're telling me that somebody bet $18 million.
Was he living in a 1-bedroom apartment?
And he didn't know about it?
Yeah, come on, man.
I'm like, there's no way. That guy was betting on his behalf. Right?
Oh, yeah. And by the way, like I was talking to my son last night, I was like, it's a travesty because the owners knew about it, the coaches knew about it, the scouts knew about it, the general managers knew about it. Everyone knew what was happening with steroids. And by the way, they all profited from it because the game spiked in 1998 when Sosa and McGuire went off. I mean, just went off. Yeah. The game spiked and it caught for a long period of time, and it was fun to watch. They were hitting bombs left and right. Now watching a game, there'd be 7 hits in a whole game and 36 strikeouts. It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
Like maybe they need to just like before the game, like you just go see the trainer and he.
No, there's a lot of things that go on. So if you realize you have dead ball errors and you have live ball errors, so they play around with the balls. You know, a lot of people don't know this. In that time frame when Sammy Sosa and McGuire, they used to put the balls in the fridge.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they
were constricted.
Yeah, they were really tight. So if you look
they were winding those threads tight inside.
So the coefficient of restitution is a lot higher.
Yeah.
Right. So there's all kinds of stuff. And the same thing, it's all about money, like you said, right? Because if you think about it, why didn't they overlook Pete Rose? Because Pete Rose was already after his career. So there was not much for them to gain from it.
There was no,
Why didn't they go after Ohtani? Because they saw Ohtani as a cash cow. They're like, well,
he's their number one guy.
You follow me? So basically when he got caught, it was good timing for him because he's just
MLB. I love you, but enough of the virtue signaling. Yeah. Either call it one way or call it the other way. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's an entertainment. The fans want to be entertained, and your product is boring right now. I'm sorry. We need Art Caines to be back in the league, ripping liners and running from first to home in 6 seconds. All right. Quick hit number 2. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
The best place that you have ever traveled to in your life.
Ooh.
Your favorite place.
Gosh, I've been to a lot of places.
That's why I thought this would be a cool question.
Yeah, so I'll give it a little bit of background there. So when I went to aviation high school, a lot of the population there was Chinese.
Really?
Yeah, because think about it.
Mathematical.
Entrance examination, you have to have good grades.
Analytical.
Yeah. So there are very few Hispanic
lines up very
students.
Much to their culture and their upbringing.
Yeah. So so basically I hit it off with some of them and I started learning a little bit of Chinese. And I said, I always wanted to go to China and go to Asia, right? So when I went to UT, when I started talking about playing football there, I took East Asian history as that was my summer class.
Okay.
Right. So what I wound up doing was I wound up getting a minor in Japanese. So I know hiragana, katakana, and some kanji. I wound up getting fluent in speaking Japanese. And then I learned Chinese. That's another story, but Mandarin. But anyway, I got to go to Japan.
Okay.
And I was just blown away by the level of organization, the level of development,
It's a lot of people tucked into one little island there. It's a lot of people.
Yeah, and not only that, the amazing part is that they have no natural resources.
Mm-hmm.
They don't mine metals there. They don't have oil, none of that.
They have water. They're surrounded by water.
And they're the number 3 economy or number 4 economy in the world. Yeah. So that just comes from the level of organization that they have and the level of determination, and grit factor. And a lot of times, you see countries that have all kinds of resources, but they can't make anything work. Right. So it really amazed me. And I went to a place called Hakone.
Okay.
and it's like a volcano. But they have these waters, these spring waters that are extremely hot. I'm talking like 120,
No
125
kidding.
degrees.
Like a hot tub right in the middle.
And it's so hot that you can boil an egg.
Really?
Yeah, so if you eat one of those eggs, you'll live for 100 years.
Is that what they say?
Yeah.
All right.
So
I love it.
I ate two.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, quick hit number 3 is going to be this.
The story's not done.
Oh, good. Keep going.
So I'm going to tell you a really funny story. So when I went to Japan the first time, I've been a few times. I went to a small town called Odawara. And I went to work, went for work there, and I get off the bullet train. And when I get off the bullet train, there's like a really long line waiting for cabs. So I just get on the line, and this guy walks up to me, and he goes, "Hey, I think I know you." And he's talking to me in English.
Yeah.
And I says, "You know me?" And so he goes, "Yeah, you're from Chicago, right?"
Get out of
and
town.
I said, "Yeah, I'm from Chicago." He goes, "I knew I know you." So you're Scottie Pippen, right?
Well, Scottie Pippen's 6'7",
Yeah.
so I can imagine.
So at the time, I did have a little bit of a flat top. You know, and,
I could see it.
Yeah,
You have a nicer nose, though.
Yeah, but it was funny. So the guy, I was like, no. He goes, "Come on, don't be so modest. Just come with me." And he grabs me by the hand. He brings me all the way to the front of the line, and he tells the cabbie, "Hey, Scottie Pippen, take him to his hotel. Don't charge him."
Oh my gosh,
And the
that's
guy
awesome.
ran me to my
I would have
hotel.
been Scottie Pippen that whole week, man.
Did not charge me.
Oh man, I would have been Scottie Pippen. Nicest restaurant. Hey, Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, that was really funny.
That is great stuff. So, quick hit number 3. We hope that you live for the 200 years. We hope that you live a very long time. But your very final meal, if you could have any final meal, anything. I mean, get imaginative here. It could be made by Wolfgang Puck, or it could be something that you had before. Maybe it's mom's home cooking. What is the ultimate final meal for you?
Well, it's something that most people wouldn't know, but it's called pipián.
Okay.
And pipián is it's a meal that, well, it's a dish, and it's served with tubers. And tubers are things that grow underneath the ground, like if you're familiar with taro root,
Okay.
or if you're familiar with, I don't even know some of these names in English, but basically there are these different tubers that grow underneath the ground. One is like a yam.
Okay.
And it's made with hearts, liver, and kidneys.
Mm.
So you have that in a really heavy tomato base, like with a lot of onions and garlics and pepper, and you serve that over those roots.
Man, you got authentic on this one. This is a Dominican dish. Is this something that mom made a lot?
Not a lot, but it was made on special occasions.
Yeah, that's the special occasion one, right?
Yeah.
You lost me at the kidneys and that's,
Well,
my mom and dad coming from like first generation from Europe, they they ate the whole everything on the cow or whatever the animal was.
Right.
So
you have to remember this, when you grow up poor, you find out that people do all kinds of things that eventually become delicacies. But at the time, it was like, that's the cheapest thing to buy: kidneys, liver, and heart, right?
Yeah.
And you can't afford the steak, but
Yeah, you eat what it is, and it turns out to be a delicacy.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, quick hit number 4. What is the greatest musical concert that you've ever been to?
Wow.
Like, what's your jam?
Well, I did go to a Keith Sweat concert in Cincinnati. I was big into R&B.
Yeah.
So I would say that's one of them. But I'll take another one. So I'll give a little bit of a background. So I went to a concert at UIC. And while we were at the concert, it was my wife and I, we just moved to Illinois. And I look across the audience and I say, you know what? I think that guy's Dominican. And my wife's always challenged me, just go and find out.
Yeah.
But I was like, it's too many people. It's just so my wife's like, I don't think he is, but because Dominican comes in all shades, colors, and sizes, right? So you have Dominicans that look Caucasian, and you have Dominicans that look in everything in between.
What's the test? You throw them a ground ball?
So exactly.
They catch you, they're Dominican.
So I go up after the concert. I made sure that I grab this guy and I say, "Hey, are you from Dominican?" He goes, "Yes, I am." Awesome. So it was great because I really developed he was like the first friend I met here and I made here, and we stayed friends till this day. And I mentored their kids. They had kids before us, and both of their kids wound up becoming really good basketball players. One of them was run up to Mr. Basketball in the state of Illinois. They both played basketball in Ivy League schools. So one played at University of Chicago. Here's the all-time assistant leader at the University of Chicago. The other one played at Harvard.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's outstanding.
So that was like the best concert that I've gone to.
Yeah, right.
I was able to have an impact on.
See, music brings people together. Music brings people together. I absolutely love it. All right, final question, final quick hit. If you were the second in charge, you got God and then Art's number 2. You're his consigliere, right? What is the most important message that you would want to get across to human beings? That this is absolutely what we need to do in order to improve?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing, especially traveling around the world, is that we have more things in common than we realize. A lot of times we let situations divide us, right? But the reality is that as humans, we all have basic needs and we all have basic tenets that we live by. And I found those to be pretty much in line. So as you engage with people, realize that there's more things that unite you than that separate you.
Couldn't have ended on a better note. Ladies and gentlemen, Art Caines. Art, I want to remind you, sir, you got shit done.
Oh, thank you, John. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for being on. Cheers. Can your business handle 15% growth? If yes, you have to engage with 2020 Design. They fuse data and creativity to stop the scroll, break through the noise, and grab the attention of your future customers. 2020 Design will create competitive, click-worthy campaigns, design and build custom websites, spark your social media presence, and structure email campaigns that get right to your audience, the decision maker. Let's boost attention and awareness, which allows you to convert more sales. Check them out at 2020design.com. That's the number 20, TWENTY design.com.